Okay, Midland Online Academy, or any student who is absent for whatever reason, you're quarantined, whatever. If you are not in this room for Tuesday, December the 1st, then this is your online lesson. So let's look at our agenda for today. It says, I can explain how John Adams' domestic policy led to his loss in the election of 1800. And it further says that we're going to have a throwback Tuesday assignment over the First Amendment, and we're going to work on notes in our digital interactive notebook. So now that we know our goal for the day, click on this classwork tab. Under the attendance instructions, you're going to see a link to a Google form. And when you pop this open, it's going to ask for your name. If you're MOA, it's going to ask if you're regular MOA or EAS MOA. If you're absent from one of my face-to-face classes, then what you're going to see here are a list of classes. Here is the video you're now watching. Of course, this isn't the video you're watching. This is yesterday's video because I haven't updated it because I'm still making it and I can't put the right video in till I make it. And then underneath, there are some questions that will show to me whether or not you've actually paid attention to the video. These questions are relatively easy, assuming you watch this video and understand the words that come out of my mouth, which you could pause and rewind. So you should get 100 on these because they're not hard, okay? If you get a 40, then I know you didn't really watch the video. Okay, so leave that form open, then come back over here in the classwork tab again to Early Republic. And we're going to leave that Throwback Tuesday alone for now, but we are going to open our digital interactive notebook and we're going to get our Early Republic notes ready, okay? So, in the interactive notebook today, we're going to be on page 5. Yesterday, we did a picture of John Adams and the years of the foreign policy. If you didn't do that yesterday, back up, go watch yesterday's video and get that done. Today, we're going to take notes on his domestic policy. So the slides I'm about to show you give you the information you need for this blue box. Okay, so going in our slideshow, we're going to scooch through all this Washington stuff. And we're going to start getting in on domestic policy. So again, I've got 2 slides. These slides are going to fill up this blue box here. So you're going to type here while I explain this. So John Adams is our only president in the entire history of the United States who was a member of the Federalist Party. Some historians will refer to Washington as a Federalist because philosophically, Washington's pretty close to the Federalists, but he doesn't like parties. He never signs up for the party. And the first couple of laws we're going to talk about, there's 3 laws out of 4 that define the Adams administration. The first 2 are called the Alien Act and then another called the Alien Enemies Act. And these laws are designed to make it easy for the president to kick out immigrants he doesn't like. Gee, that sounds kind of familiar. Anyway, so Adams is wanting the ability to put people on the fast track to deportation. But notice that this is targeted at the French. Yesterday in foreign policy, we talked about the XYZ affair. So we had this whole thing about the French were attacking our ships, and there was a lot of political unrest going on in France. Their revolution got out of hand. Adams doesn't trust French immigrants. He's got a thing against the French. And so the Alien Act and the Alien Enemies Act are designed to help him get any French people out of the country who he thinks may be up to political rabble rousing. Now, you got to remember, Thomas Jefferson spent years in France. Jefferson had a lot of friends in France. Jefferson's Democratic Republican Party was pro-French, right? So when Adams begins to pick on French immigrants, he is causing drama with the other party, right? The Democratic Republicans don't like these laws. They then strengthened the law a little bit because it used to say that if you lived in the United States for a few years, you could become a citizen. And so the Democratic Republicans were trying to get as many French immigrants to become citizens as they could, as fast as they could, thinking these French immigrants would vote for the Democratic Republican Party and against the Federalist Party. So John Adams goes back to Congress, and remember at this point, all of these laws have to be passed by Congress. A president cannot make laws. But the Federalist Party controls the House of Representatives and the Senate in this time period. So Adams is the one who's coming up with these ideas. It's up to Congress to pass them, but they do, because in this time period, Congress and the president were all part of the same party. And so they make this new law that says you have to live in the United States for at least 14 years before you can become a citizen. This is designed expressly to prevent immigrants from voting for one party and against the other. That is the motivation here. It's not about economics or national security. This is down and dirty politics. So if you need to, pause the video for a minute, type all of these notes into that blue column. I'll wait. Seriously, pause and type. Okay, so now that you got these, let's go to the straw that breaks the camel's back. So these three laws were not popular. And the Democratic Republican Party in particular is very, very, very upset. And so you get a big national backlash. Newspapers, magazine articles, anti-federalist rallies. So they pass the Sedition Act. And the Sedition Act makes it illegal to publish false, scandalous, or malicious material against the government, the president, and the Justice Department. In other words, to borrow some very modern language, they were making what they would have deemed fake news illegal, that you weren't allowed to pick on President Adams or members of Congress who belonged to his party. Now, the law actually exempted criticizing the minority party. In other words, under the Sedition Act, you could say anything you wanted about the Democratic Republicans and Thomas Jefferson, but if you said anything bad about John Adams, you could go to jail. If you said anything bad about members of the Federalist Party serving in the House of Representatives or the Senate, you could go to jail. Yes, folks, this is a gross violation of the First Amendment. And everybody knew it. But here's the problem. The Supreme Court at this time was very loosely organized and did not yet realize that it had the power to get rid of a bad law like this. We'll get into how the Supreme Court finally grows into its own later in the week. But during the Adams years, the Supreme Court didn't realize that it had that power. So all these four laws taken together are referred to as the Alien and Sedition Acts. We tend to talk about all four in one breath, although all four laws are very different. And the three Alien Acts, the Alien Act, Alien Enemies Act, and Naturalization Act, are very different than the Sedition Act. We tend to treat these all together because these were extremely unpopular. They were viewed as forms of tyranny. They were viewed as being un-American. And because of this, Adams goes down in flames. He's considered horrifically unsuccessful in domestic policy, and the country absolutely turns against John Adams. And this is the reason no Federalist candidate will ever win the White House again. In fact, the Federalist Party is going to die a very, very, very slow death in the 20 years after the passing of these laws. So they're going to stick around as a party, but the number of seats they have in the House and the Senate shrinks in every single election. And by the late 18 teens, early 1820s, the Federalist Party just goes away, disappears into nothing. Okay, so again, you can pause here and make sure you have these notes. Okay, now that you got these notes, I want to walk you through really quick some of the outcome just to show you how this worked out. In the election of 1800, to give you an idea, remember that there was no 12th Amendment yet, so whoever came in second got to be vice president. But Jefferson and Burr are both running as Democratic Republicans. They actually wind up tying. They both get 73 electoral votes, which means that Adams and Charles Pinckney are out. Neither one of them are going to be president. And ultimately, the House of Representatives has to choose between Thomas Jefferson and Aaron Burr. At first, it's not very clear who's going to win, but if you've seen the musical Hamilton, you know that The Democratic Republican members of the House of Representatives, because whenever we don't know who wins the White House, the House of Representatives gets to pick. And the Democratic Republicans are split down the middle. And so it's really going to be up to the Federalists. The Federalists know they can't get Adams or Pinckney in. They know they can't get their candidates in. So the Federalists have to decide, would they rather have Jefferson or Burr? And Hamilton, Alexander Hamilton at this point, is not a member of the government. He's a private citizen, a lawyer in New York. But Federalists in Congress reach out to Hamilton and say, okay, our party lost. Which of these guys can we live with? And famously, Hamilton chooses Thomas Jefferson. This just adds more bad blood to the feud between Burr and Hamilton, which eventually leads to Hamilton and Burr dueling in New Jersey and Aaron Burr shooting and killing Alexander Hamilton. So if you've seen the musical, you know this story. If not, spoiler alert, too late. All right, anyway, to show you how this plays out on a map, you can kind of see that Jefferson and the Democratic Republicans are going to hold most of their sway down here. Now, Pinckney gets some of these votes down here. But basically, the Federalists even lose New York State, which had been a Federalist state, because they're so offended by this anti-immigration move. New York has always been a pro-immigrant community. I mean, it's New York City. Everybody's there, right? So this is the way that election pans out. And it's also the first time that Kentucky and Tennessee get to vote for president. Notice we've now gone, we no longer just have 13 states. We're actually up to 15 states at this point. Tennessee and Kentucky are now in the Union. So that's it for Adams and the Federalists. So now you've got this done. We just did the domestic. We did foreign yesterday. The only other assignment you have today is this Throwback Thursday on First Amendment rights. So you've got a link here to an essay, and then you've got a Google form. And since we're talking about the First Amendment and the Sedition Acts as a violation of the First Amendment, I thought this was a really good time for us to go back and do this Google form. It's pretty simple. There's only 10 questions worth 10 points each. If you go through the reading, this is not hard. Some of you are getting really low grades on these Google forms. Please do not hit submit till you've checked your work. I'm not trying to make this hard. If you do the reading and if you look for evidence in the answers in the reading, you're going to at least get a 70. You ought to get a 90 or 100. But even if you struggle a little bit as a reader, you ought to be able to pass these. There's no reason. I've been using these for years. You should do this. You should be able to do this. I shouldn't see 40s on these Google forms. Slow down, do the reading, look for evidence. I don't care if you open up Google and get some Google help with these questions. I want you to get the right answers. Do it slow. It's not hard. Okay, so you've got this Google form, you've got this Google form, should be pretty easy. That's really all we've got for today, and I will drop a fresh set of instructions for tomorrow. Bye, guys. Email if you need help.